Micro Machines, Micro Machines, Micro Machines! Welcome to Pegwarmers, I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're talking about Star Wars Micro Machines. If you were a Star Wars fan in the 90s, around the time of Power of the Force and the special editions, you've got to remember the Micro Machine sets. These were toys that I was into quite a bit. Being born in '82, my entire childhood Star Wars fandom period was the dark times. Collecting Kenner figures from yard sales and flea markets, playing with incomplete, broken ships, and it wasn't until Power of the Force 2 and the Bendums and the Micro Machine sets that I was able to get brand new Star Wars toys. And I was pretty into the Micro Machines. I had a few complaints here and there, but overall they were pretty exciting, and it was fun to be able to ask for stuff that was at retail for holidays and birthdays. The very first Micro Machine set I got was the Death Star. This was labeled as Star Wars A New Hope. It seemed like I think they did one from each movie to start this line off. It's half the Death Star with the trench seemingly running the wrong way around the Death Star. Unless it was meant to hang on the wall, and then maybe the trench runs the correct way in conjunction with the turbo laser. A little odd. But this was a fun toy. You could take your Micro Machine X-Wing and fly over the trench, although the scaling wasn't really perfect. But this was more of a playset. I always felt like these sets were more about the minifigures than the ships. And they reminded me a lot of the Kenner die-cast micro figures, which I had some of as a kid, secondhand. I can lift the top off the Death Star here to reveal the interior. It's got the tractor beam piece in the center here. There is a tractor beam arm off to the side that can extend, and you can connect the X-Wing to it. If the set focused on the trench run, I get why it comes with the X-Wing, but to me it always seemed like it should have come with the Falcon, since it had this whole tractor beam focus to it. There's also a giant turbo laser that you can clip on here and have it stick out. The main floor is cardboard, and there's some sticker details on the inside here, but it's mostly just kind of the hangar floor and like a catwalk here. It did come with several figures. There's a Darth Vader, a pretty classic Darth Vader figure with him raising his lightsaber. No Ben Kenobi for him to face off with. We've got a Luke Skywalker. He's in his Tatooine farm boy outfit, and he's holding a blaster. There's a Han Solo holding a two-handed blaster. Whoops, he just took a dive. There's a Princess Leia, again holding a two-handed blaster. And we get R2-D2. This was a pretty good set. If you're focusing on these hangar bays, a Stormtrooper probably would have been nice. Maybe a Ben to go with Darth Vader. I guess you get too many figures. Of course, you're missing Chewie and C-3PO if you really want to complete the scene. So I get paring it down to some degree. It's not a bad character selection, but, anytime you get one of these sets, there's always somebody missing. That's just kind of the general vibe with these kind of sets. The other big feature on this was a exploding compartment. So when you have your X-Wing flying around doing the trench run, you can have it shoot and boom, this panel will fly off. I often reenacted the trash compactor scene, putting Han and Luke and Leia in here in this little room. That room is not really detailed to look like anything real. But, got to have a spring-loaded battle damage thing on the playset to make it fun for the kids. One of my biggest complaints with the entire Micro Machine line was scale. Scale was always an issue. Obviously, this is a very small Death Star compared to this X-Wing. The trench isn't really big enough for the X-Wings to fly in it. It's not even very deep. They're definitely trying to pack in a lot of exciting things into one playset here. But I felt like they didn't really do any one scene justice. They sort of just, a little bit of everything. This feels like Star Wars. And, I guess that was good in a way, because then I could play lots of parts of the storyline with this set without just being stuck with well, there's no trench, so I can't do the trench run, and there's no trash compactor, so I can't do the trash compactor, there's no hangar bay, and of course, you were supposed to use this with other Micro Machine toys, so I did have a Millennium Falcon, and I did have a TIE Fighter, and things like that to, build out the world. So long before Pegwarmers, and before SEO Toy Review, on my original YouTube channel that is just a kind of a mixed match of lots of different things. I did eventually start doing toy reviews at one point, right before SEO Toy Review, and I made some stop-motion animated videos using a few of these sets. I didn't do all of them. I had plans to do more of those. They're silly. I really kind of hammed up the voices and put in some pretty bad effects, but they were kind of fun to do. Got us in a tractor beam. Coast is clear. Oh boy, there's the tractor beam controls. Too bad we don't have an Obi-Wan figure. Breeze, Rebels. This must be the Imperial hangar. Breeze, Rebel. That was close. I've got a bad feeling about this. We're gonna have to cross the stream, boys. This trench seemed bigger in the movies. Oh, hey, Princess. We're here to rescue you. There were several Death Star playsets in this line eventually. As far as I recall, the line started with these small playsets, but it did expand. There was a fairly flat-looking Death Star that kind of opened up into a 3D playset, and then there was also a 3D Galoob-style Death Star. I do not have this anywhere near complete. In fact, I only have the Death Star itself. I don't have any of the minifigures. There should be a little Millennium Falcon, because this time the tractor beam does work. But this one's kind of neat. It opens up, but instead of being a Death Star playset, it's a Death Star and Tatooine playset, because it's basically all of A New Hope. There's a compartment on the side here, and I don't think I've ever opened it. There's a little arm that sticks out here, I guess for launching a ship. Maybe it's another way of doing the tractor beam. I don't know. But let me pop this thing over. There's a tab on the back here. And boom! It spring loads open. This is like a transforming set. The top here is mostly just a Death Star hangar, similar to the other toy. Down below, though, I do love that it's got the band here from the cantina. You've got the bar. You've got some seats. There's some stairs here that take you down to an area with a little bit more going on in it. There's a peg over here that makes a Tusken Raider pop up. There is a dewback in here and some sand troopers and a sticker. And then you get down here to the Lars homestead, which actually can open up. This did come with a Beru and Owen, and this is one of the most tragic Star Wars toys. I have two toys that I can think of that are just kind of tragic Star Wars toys. And I thought about trying to do some sort of tragic toy video. I've been trying to think of what a good name for it would be, but I really only have two. And so I just don't think that video is ever going to happen. So I decided to show this off in this video, and I think I'm going to show the other one off in a Patreon video to kind of go with the sister bit to this. So if you're on the Patreon, you got to check out that video. But right here, the sand in the desert next to Owen and Beru's house. Flip it over. Oh, and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru have been burned up by the stormtroopers. Really, in a kid's toy, they put a charred skeleton there. Ay, ay, ay. It's kind of crazy, man. I kind of can't believe it. So I don't know exactly who all the figures were that came with this. Obviously, probably a Luke and a Ben. Owen and Beru, or at least Owen maybe. Maybe an Imperial Greedo, I think, maybe came with this. And I think Luke Sandspeeder was probably packed in with this, maybe, or a Millennium Falcon. I'm not even totally sure. Like I said, I never had this one as a kid, but I've had it for a little while, secondhand like this, and it looks good on display, other than the post sticking out of the top. But, yeah, never tracked down any pieces to this. Here is Echo Base. This is the Empire Strikes Back set. This roof opens up to show a hangar area here. It's got the boob laser, the ion cannon, and it also has the shield generator here, which you can blow up by pressing a button on it. because everything has a spring-loaded feature with these sets. This set comes with an AT-AT, which makes sense with the shield generator here, but I always kind of wished it came with the snowspeeder because it literally has a hanger for them. Luckily, I had a snowspeeder from one of the smaller sets, the little just vehicle packs. And then as far as figures go, oh, this set also came with two of these small radar dish lasers, like the mini rig sets, you know, that they made back in the day with the Kenner stuff and that we see in the trenches. This set came with a Stormtrooper, not a Hoth Stormtrooper, but a regular Stormtrooper. I used him a lot with the Death Star. It comes with Princess Leia in her Hoth gear with her blaster out, but just at her side, not very action-packed. You get a Han on Tauntaun, C-3PO standing around like a Poindexter, which is fine, because he kind of always is, and a Bespin Luke with his lightsaber out. Why not a Hoth Luke? Why not a Hoth Luke? It really makes no sense. They just wanted to represent Empire Strikes Back here, I guess. I enjoyed having that Luke with the lightsaber out, because he could duel the Darth Vader with his lightsaber from the Death Star playset, you know, when I had these as a kid. But again, that's kind of, you know, Luke and this regular Stormtrooper were kind of bad choices here. Wow! Master Luke, isn't it cold for you to be out here? I got a bad feeling about this. I seem to be made to suffer. Wow, I gotta go to Dagobah. Around the time I made the stop motion videos, I had started like mapping out a plan to make more of those, and I happened to find a secondhand Dagobah playset from the Micro Machines line, which would help kind of tell my story. And so I started looking for pieces to it. I never completed this one, but it is still a fun one to take a look at. You get the swamp with sort of the bog area here. You get his hut, and you get the tree or the cave. It's interesting because it has a lot of the same kind of vibe stuff that the Kenner set did, but it's definitely different. The Kenner set, I felt like it incorporated the hut and the tree slash cave into like one thing, whereas this has them more distinctly separate. And the bog is a little bit more appropriately sized. So there is a lever here to raise the X-Wing up out of the fake green water here. That's not a bad feature. And I think the X-Wing is the best choice of vehicle for this set, because really the X-Wing is the only vehicle here at all. There is a little creature coming out of the water here, and if you put R2-D2 in his mouth, there's a little lever that will kind of push him out, make him get spit out. The fact that it's kind of a white monster and very T-Rex-ish looking, it always made me think of Terraclaw Skeletor's skeletal dragon weapon, whatever you want to call that. Over here, you've got Luke's boxes. They don't have a floating ability like with the Kenner set. You can take the lid off of Yoda's hut, so that way you could put figures inside, which is kind of nice. Not that there's really a lot of action inside Yoda's hut, but, you know, it's nice to have the little dollhouse kind of thing. And then you have the tree over here, and there's space you could put a figure on top, but there's actually like a spinning action here, so you could hide Darth Vader inside and reveal him when Luke enters the cave, which is kind of cool. This set is missing the Dagobah Luke, so it's Luke in his Bespin pants, but with like the tank top. It's missing an R2-D2 to be spit out by the swamp lizard. It comes with Yoda, who is sitting on some rocks. It's kind of a bigger piece here for such a small guy. They kind of made him a larger setup there with the rocks that Luke stacks. You also get the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi, so he's in translucent brown plastic. So those two pieces I have found over the years to put with this set as I worked to complete it, but never did. So unfortunately, there's no stop-motion adventure here. Overall critique, I think this set is the most kind of scene accurate. They're not trying to do too much with it. where it's like multiple major events from a movie in one scene, because Dagobah is sort of like a slowed down section. There's not really a big action sequence, so it kind of works the best, but maybe it's the most boring because it doesn't have a big set piece. There is no exploding part here. R2 just gets spit out of the lizard. But, you know, you don't have like the, well, we're trying to do Echo Base and the battle out front and the turbo laser, or the Death Star trench run and the tractor beam and the landing area. This is kind of all of Dagobah. It's pretty well encapsulated here. And even all the appropriate characters are here. Next up in story order would be Jabba's palace. This is both his palace and the Sarlacc pit, but the Sarlacc pit isn't really quite in the Dune Sea. It's just a plateau right next to Jabba's palace. So we're back to kind of condensing story beats down into one event. I kind of get it. Well, we might as well take a look at the Sarlacc pit first. This set comes with Boba Fett and a skiff. Not the sail barge, but just one of the smaller skiffs. And it kind of bounces on a little nub here, so it's real easy to tip. Whoops, the whole thing fell in. But Boba Fett's supposed to fall into the Sarlacc pit there. And there's a little button to press on the side here, which opens up the mouth, and he falls inside. No beak. No beak on this Sarlacc pit. Just the plain boring one with the spikes. Over here we've got Jabba's palace. The little toad guy is sitting outside so he can eat a fly and burp. You've got the main part of the palace here, which can lift off. The front door there. There's also some other like modular pieces. This back piece easily comes off. And even the whole wall section to the palace can slip right off. Inside here, you've got Jabba on his little dais. There is a trap door here in front of him that you can open up. So you could throw somebody in there, down into the Rancor pit. There's not actually a real pit down there, just a few minor details. And then you get 2/3 of the Max Rebo band. You've got Max pegged into his organ. It's really just a half a figure pegged in there. And there is a little rock here on the side. And when I hit that, if I wiggle it, Size Noodle and Max both jiggle a little bit so they can rock out. Not super exciting there. This is kind of fun. I think that this set might be missing some characters. I do think it came with a Luke, perhaps. I guess I didn't take notes on that beforehand. I also have a few of these little brown model kit figures from when I was a kid. I got these from a neighbor. I didn't really know what they were for as a kid. Eventually realized they were Star Wars characters. And I actually painted up this one because it's Jabba's dancer, and she was never a character that got a minifigure. She's a little bit tall. This other one is way too tall, but she's also broken, so I never really used this one with the set. Nope, it's not a Jedi Luke that's missing. I'm missing a Hutt Slayer Leia that can sit right here on the edge of his dais. This is really a stinker set then. There's nobody to threaten Jabba. There's nobody to fight with Boba Fett. This set is really not very action-packed. They did fix it later. Now, this is the only Micro Machines playset I own that was a character that flipped out. There was a lot of these. There was like an X-Wing pilot Luke head, and maybe a TIE Fighter pilot head. These heads that would flip out into Micro Machine playsets. I get it. Kind of fun for kids to be able to turn it into a carrying case. Very Mighty Max X-esque. But I liked the kind of the bigger, sprawling playset aspect of the old ones more. But I did get this one because this was a more action-packed. I did get this one, though, because it was more action-packed Jabba's playset. If you open R2-D2's head, all you get is Jabba's sail barge there. That part's not super exciting, but it makes room for the more fun stuff. So as it opens up, you get Jabba's throne room here. The Rancor Keeper is a sticker. I love that because he's one of my favorite guys from Jabba's palace. The band, who I love, are regulated to a sticker now. But you get Jabba here. I think he's pretty similar to the one in the other set. He is a retool. His hookah thing is bigger, and Salacious Crumb's actually a little bit bigger. So it's not exactly a reuse there. And most of this playset is really actually the Rancor's pit, including the door that ends up being critical to ending the Rancor. So this is a little bit more action-packed, and you get a Rancor. I love this miniature Rancor. I always thought this was super fun. You also get a Gamorrean guard, well, because you need him to fall in the Rancor pit. You get Jedi Luke, not with his lightsaber, but just ready for some action there. Both of his hands are painted flesh, correct? He has not been shot in the hand yet and put on the glove. So he's ready to fight in the Rancor pit. There's actually a trap door here. This is probably the most fiddly part of this whole playset. Jabba's dais has a little hook on it. And if you push it all the way forward and you lean this just right, it'll hold this trap door open. But it very easily collapses when you don't want it to, making it a little bit frustrating. You get a miniature Princess Leia in her Bausch disguise that can stand on the rim there. You also get Lando Calrissian in his Skiff Guard outfit, who can stand on the edge there, and they stand around in horror as their friend Luke falls into the Rancor pit. And then you get a little cute R2-D2 to put on your shelf. It seems a little bit less dorky than having your Micro Machines on display. Back to the more flat play base setups here. This is the Endor Moon. We've got the Imperial Bunker to try to break into. We've got the satellite dish that projects the Death Star's shield. Mine's missing one sticker. You've got some redwood trees here, and you've got some traps. This set comes with an AT-ST, which makes total sense. I'm amazed I could get that to stand there. So there are 2 sets of logs here that you hook up in a tree. They're on little strings. And then when the chicken walker walks in here, the Ewoks slash those ropes, or you just push the little top of the tree, and they swing in there and really don't actually hit the AT-ST, but it so barely balances that you might knock it over, and it's fun. Or you can have it walk over to this really large ramp the Ewoks built just in time to have a quick trap, and then you can press this rock down here, and the logs will roll once again, knocking over that AT-ST that's barely able to stand. Oh boy. This Endor set gets a little weird when it comes to figures. Who should it come with? Well, we've got an Ewok, of course, and that's great. You need Ewoks on Endor. They build the traps. We've got a Stormtrooper. That's fun. They're the guys we're trying to fight. We've got Chewbacca, and that's good because, you know, we can use him with the Death Star set and, you know, some of the other play sets to flesh out the crew. It comes with Yoda. Why does it come with Yoda? Is it the ghost of Yoda for when, you know, the end of the movie? I don't know. And it comes with Boba Fett. Boba Fett? Boba Fett? Where? He's on Endor, apparently. Why it came with Boba Fett, I do not know. I think an Endor Han would have been nice. Maybe an Imperial officer. Or Endor Leia could have been kind of cool. There's a lot of options here, but this one is kind of a stinker. I would rather had 2 Ewoks than Yoda and Boba Fett, but, you know, this is the beginning of Boba Fett being the most popular character in Star Wars. He exploded. Even he was always popular, but he exploded in popularity in the 90s. Now, I know there are a ton of sets, and I don't have anywhere near all of them. But please, in the comments down below, let me know what is your favorite Star Wars Micro Machine set if you had any of these. I actually have a Boss Nass figure here that ended up in my collection through the Hack the Movies Episode 1 episode, where they talked about the merchandising of Episode 1. So if you've never seen that one, check it out. A lot of these Micro Machine ships came with little flight stands because they just don't really sit well. They were trying to make them maybe a little more action-packed. The scale was terrible. I mean, look at how big this Death Star is compared to the TIE Fighter or the Millennium Falcon and an A-Wing. Yeah, a one-person ship and a ship that can hold a bunch of guys in it. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but they were still fun. Sometimes the scale annoyed me a little bit, but I did enjoy being able to get so many of these ships the Tantive 5 or the Tantive V. The Blockade Runner was a ship that we just didn't really have a toy of too much. So it was nice to be able to get some of these ships. I had a lot of fun playing with these as a kid. Here's an Action Fleet Emperor. Action Fleet was kind of the next version of this, where the ships were a little bit bigger, and the characters could have articulation at, like, their waists. I never collected Action Fleet, but I know a lot of people were fans of them. And I have a few of those guys sprinkled in here. I have a few random figures from other sets. Like, I have a Han disguised as a stormtrooper here without his helmet, and Princess Leia crouching down. I think those are from another Death Star set. Picked them up along the way somewhere. I've got a dead stormtrooper. It's laying on the ground. They made a bunch of, like, army builder sets, so I have some Tusken Raiders here. I thought it was pretty cool. Some of these ships, like the B-Wing, and I mentioned the A-Wing already, but these were ships that I hadn't seen the toys of. The Kenner toys were a little bit harder to find when I was a kid, so having just any version of those ships was a lot of fun. Jabba's Sail Barge, which had not really been a toy yet. So I had several of these little 3-packs that came with ships. There was a bigger gift set that had a lot of ships in it that I really kind of wanted for Christmas at one point. I didn't get it, and I was thinking about spending my money on it, and for some reason at the last moment, I just decided not to buy it. Mostly, I think, because of the repeats. And it's funny, because yes, I collected lines like Monster in My Pocket and got doubles of a lot of characters. With the Star Wars ships, I didn't mind having doubles of X-Wings or TIE Fighters, but having doubles of the Millennium Falcon or Jabba's Sail Barge felt weird and kind of pointless. It was kind of fun having multiple AT-ATs, though. Some of the ships, it works for. The final Micro Machine playset I got as a kid, and probably the one I played with the most, was the Millennium Falcon. This was perhaps the best scaled Millennium Falcon we had seen up to that point. Obviously, we didn't have the larger, big Millennium Falcon at the time, but this had a 4-seat cockpit and room to do a lot of the different scenes from the various movies in it. It also doubled as a hangar bay, which that part I didn't quite understand. There's a little flap that folds up here that is supposed to be a deflector shield, perhaps. It's a little weird. There's also a handle that pulls out in the back here, so you could use this as a carrying case. I guess that's okay, but it always made that sticker a little rough. There was a cannon on the top here that actually is spring-loaded and has a seat for a guy. No protection from the elements of space there, but the outside of the ship looks pretty good. I should probably stick the radar dish on it there to show it off so you can see what it looks like. Alright, so the upper half here is the hangar bay portion. It has a little claw that comes out, and you can spin this, and there's spaces to plug on ships, and it rotates them as they move through. Almost makes you think that the Millennium Falcon was so big that fighters fit inside it. That's not quite the case. But over here on the other half is the play area that is more of the ship itself. So you can actually pop this windscreen off here, which gives you access to all 4 seats in the cockpit. It comes with 3 seated people, which was kind of fun. It has Han Solo. It has Chewie. Punch it, Chewie. And it has Lando Calrissian. So this was a little bit more Return of the Jedi themed. There's also a 9-num figure here, but he is not seated. He can only stand because he's kind of a dork, apparently. And all 3 of those figures could be seated in the gunner station that came with this, or be seated at the chess table because the bench is there. And you may notice that when the gun rotates, so does the chess table for no known reason. This set also comes with a Minoc. I believe there's a Princess Leia with her gas mask on. Hopefully I can find it and show her in the B-roll, because I think I saw her a few minutes ago, but she's not in here. And there is C-3PO with only 1 foot. This is when he's trying to repair himself, or asking R2 to repair him. Here's the missiles to the cannon here, so these can fit in here. They're big, old, spring-loaded missiles. The loading ramp. The loading ramp can fold down there, so you can have guys get on board. There is a floor panel that opens up to reveal some cabling. That's great for doing some of the repairs on the ship. The medbay bed is here for Luke after the fight on Bespin, and there's also a whole bunch of other panels in the back here that are too high to be the smuggling panels on the floor, but that's what I always kind of pretended they were, or they're just other maintenance areas. But definitely a great way to stash all of your little Star Wars minifigures if you want to use this as your main carrying case. I use this a lot. It was a fun Millennium Falcon. I played with this a lot. The Millennium Falcon's in all three of the original Star Wars movies, so there's lots of adventures you can play out. You can throw that Bespin Luke from one of the other sets in here, even though he's got his lightsaber ignited, on the bed and recreate that scene. You can kind of do all the scenes if you have a bunch of these sets and a lot of the minifigures, and that made this really fun. Of course, I had the Kenner Millennium Falcon growing up, not as a really young kid, but I had a beat-up one at some point during my childhood, and that was very limited because it was based on A New Hope. It really just had the smuggling compartment and the chess table and the training ball. It didn't really have some of the other scenes. The play space in the back was very limited to just one little section. You couldn't actually walk to the cockpit. It was sort of separated out. So this just kind of felt more like a complete ship. And that was kind of fun to me. I played with this a lot. I really do think this is one of the best sets in the Micro Machine line. So, overall, what do you guys think of these sets? Did you have any as kids? I feel like the fold-out faces ones were super popular, but I didn't jump on them as much, and maybe I missed out. There was a period of time where I was looking at getting a lot of these, because like I said, I was kind of going to do like a whole series of reviews of these, but it never really panned out. I just sort of, I think, lost interest in it. But they can be kind of fun. I did another Micro Machines episode here on the channel looking at a friend's standard Micro Machine collection. I have other Micro Machines to look at some point, so I may do another video on Micro Machines. Let me know. Leave some love in the comments for Micro Machines if you want to see more. Thanks so much for being here. Hit the like button to let YouTube know this is quality content. Subscribe if you haven't done so. If you want to support us further, consider joining us on Patreon. But most of all, thanks for hanging on the peg with me.